everyone, Flapjackpants here. Welcome back to another episode of the Let's Play series. Over the past few episodes of our series, we have built a lot in our city, but we haven't really had much time to polish down some of the finer details. And so in today's episode, I want to do some hopefully smaller house cleaning projects just so that we can tidy up what we've made first and foremost. And the first thing that I want to get off our list of things to do in this episode is actually put bells in our clock tower. So we have a villager right here, fresh from the villager breeder, that we're going to give a job as an armorer. And then I believe that is the job that should have bells as one of the trades. Now let's see. Hopefully he doesn't become attracted to the barrels. Okay, perfect. Okay, small problem, guys. I don't think he's gonna sell us any bells. A shame if something happened to him, though. You know, he's still like a valuable member of our city here. Oh, he has actually changed his mind. It's amazing how great friendship is. And that should be all the bells that we need to complete our bell tower. So we finally finished up our clock tower now, and now that it's dawn, we should be able to hear if it works or not. So just standing around down here, we might be able to hear it ring. Okay, there it is. All right, I was about to check up here. It might be a little bit loud actually, now that I think about it. Okay, it is quite loud. I don't know how loud that is in the video. That might have just like killed a few people, but hopefully it didn't. The next thing I want to do is actually deck out this building right here. This was our Creaking farming area. I never really bothered to furnish it with an interior, so let's do that real quick. Alright guys, I'm done with the interior. Ta-da! You know, for the most part with interiors, I've just kind of usually filled up my inventory with a bunch of random interior related stuff and just kind of let myself go at it. And this is no different, but I think this one turned out very nice, especially with the little fireplace here and the little chair. It's just super cozy in here. Nice small room. I guess none of the details are really that new or extraordinary other than this dried ghast I've put here. Next to these candles, this is like a kind of like an interesting, I guess, like artifact that this person owns from the Nether, which normal people don't go to. And he's also obviously very rich because there's the gold farm underneath all of this. And I think it all just comes together pretty well. The Creakings, we can actually shut them out like this so that it's a little bit more seamless when you turn on the farm here with the lever here. Yeah, with that being said, I think this interior was kind of hit out of the park. Actually, we could put some of the armor from that villager earlier today on this stand. And here we go. Oh yeah, that just ties everything together super nicely. I can write up here, 9-4-2025. That's when I'm recording this. It could be pretty long after that if you're watching this on YouTube, but yeah, so that's a nice little other thing ticked off of the list. And the next thing I want to do is actually remodel this house, not the exterior but the interior. So if you don't know, this used to be the main storage of our city before we built the giant castle out back there. All of my items used to just be stored here manually, and I don't really come back here much anymore except for the fact that all of my armor is still stored here, the oracle from like 3 episodes ago, and this is the elevator down to the mines. But I recently saw a couple of YouTube shorts that I think really exemplify a new style that I want to experiment in. maybe new style isn't the word, but just recreating the vibe of older versions of this game. Without further ado, I think it would be really cool to transform this interior into exactly that. All right, guys, are we ready for the grand reveal? Bam. Isn't this shot right here just so nostalgic? Back in the day, like every house used to look like this back in like 2013 or so. I feel like for this building specifically, it matches just perfectly. Now, it's still a little bit rough around the edges. There's some places like right here where I think, you know, there's a lot of dead space, but I feel like some of the roughness, you know, like to some extent kind of fits with the theme, right? So the one thing that I've kept, like the one major feature here, is the Nether portal. This is still pretty much exactly the same. I felt like this was important to keep because this is still our only connection here in the new city to the Nether roof. So we're keeping that there, but everything else is going to be plugged into the Nether hub below the ceiling. This right here is a little old school kitchen. You know, many a refrigerator was made like this back in the day. You know, you have like this old stove trick and then the cauldron with the tap. I think I still use this sometimes. I think this is a really good building trick. It still has application today, but there's the cakes everywhere. And of course, a lot of old paintings and, you know, pots. There's the fireplace here. I didn't want to put an actual fire. Throughout this entire building, I've tried to keep two elements, and that is the cauldron and the leaves, another old school trick, and the pistons here as tables. I don't really do this anymore because, I mean, A, it takes up a lot of space vertically because you need redstone underneath, but also because the table kind of like goes down, which I think is just a little awkward, but this was like a common thing back in the day. So it's right here as well. And of course right here, there's like an old school bathroom. This is I think one of the ways people used to make showers back in the day. And, well, you don't want to know what goes on in there. I've kept the oracle right here just in case we want to, like in the future, revisit some of these projects. I replaced the bamboo button here with an oak one, just some small attention to detail here. Up here, there's this old TV. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the day, a lot of TVs were made this way with the painting. The sofa's a little close to it, but I kind of ran out of room here. I moved the bedroom up here from, you know, originally it was where the kitchen was downstairs, but now it's up here. Again, very cozy environment. And the enchanting system is still here, but I moved the grindstone so that it's out of view because, you know, for usability reasons, we need this here, but it doesn't really fit with the theme. There's a lot of these carpets here that I've kept around. I've kept the normal red carpet downstairs, but I've done a lot of these checkerboards here. This was something that I think was pretty common back in the day as well. And you know, back then there was just weird stuff randomly, right? Like this bizarre table note block thing. It's just here, but I think it kind of fits with the theme with how things used to be made. And yeah, I almost forgot. There's this one small area up here for storage. There's nothing here right now, and I don't think there ever will be, but I feel like, you know, this kind of incongruent storage room in the middle of nowhere was a feature that was significant. So anyways, that's the end of this house tour. No, we actually got done with those house cleaning chores faster than I assumed. And so, you know, for a change of pace this episode, let's start something new. There is this massive plain right here, right next to our spawn point, which is roughly over here, that is just completely blank. And it's been blank for the entire history of the world. Of course, our starter base is inside the mountains here, and Old City, this area right here, was pretty important as well in the early days of this world. But, you know, in between them is just this massive expanse of nothing. And so I feel like it's about time we color this place with a little bit more life. everybody. I hope you enjoyed that montage, but we are done here filling in the space. And I have to say, this whole flower field and windmill, I think I did a very good job on. There were a whole bunch of challenges that I met along the way, like, for example, not having enough unique types of flowers. I didn't even realize this was an issue, but there's the tall flowers that I could just bone meal straight up. There's these what are these called again? These blue orchids that there's actually that small farm we have in the swamp. And then of course the nether sprouts here of various different types. Of course we have a farm for that too, but everything else, namely the dandelions here, I had to make a whole new farm for over here. As you saw in the montage, I just threw this quickly together. This is actually the same design as the blue orchid system, but literally we just break that observer, put it here, and then, yeah, then it starts working. But, at some point, I think we'll want to take over a flower forest and, fully automate getting every type of flower in the game. But yeah, another thing that I did here was change up the path. Originally, it was all path blocks, but now I've also mixed in some mud, coarse dirt, brown concrete, kind of creates a more like well-trodden feel. I think it's a little bit noisy in some places, like here, but I think overall it works very nice, and especially the path leading up to the windmill. This is just so magical walking through here with the mountains in the background and everything. I've also put these little rocks here on the side in between the leaves. I think that also adds a lot. The windmill itself, this is one of my favorite recent builds I've made, I think. Everything from this little storage area here on the side to the details of the lecterns and the buttons. And of course, the shading work, I think it all comes together very nicely. If we look at the actual windmill blades themselves here, I used glass panes here to pull them out in places so that they're kind of slightly wider, and I think it achieves just that perfect feeling. And the glass panes themselves, they're hardly visible from a distance, but they kind of make them look a little bit sharper, right? You can see like that there's kind of like a more of an edge to each of the blades, and I think that's just a little bit more detail that really makes this stand out. But the windmill itself is pretty simplistic on the inside. There's just some lighting here and then a whole bunch of storage. And of course the actual area where people might pour the grains to be grinded. Up here, there's really nothing at all. As you can see, the lecterns and like the sides there are all not actually places that are accessible. But up here, there's like some gears that might turn when the wind blows. I'm not actually super sure what our use for this building is. Usually I come up with a use before building, but I think this place could be a great base of operations for when we want to kind of rebuild the old city here, remodel some of these buildings. This would be a great place to have some temporary storage. But yeah, here on the outside of the windmill, I think is what really stands out the most. I've switched to using these polished tough blocks here as some of the darker shadows where I might normally have deep slate, and I think it works really well. It's not as stark as deep slate. The kind of transition between deep slate and tough is much less pronounced. And of course there's also little buttons all over the walls here, which, while being small, I think actually provide, just that little bit of detail that really make this build stand out. Of course, there's the signs here as well, providing more depth. I think it's just overall a very well put together build. Now, if we follow the path northward here, you can see I have the little rocks going all throughout. And this leads, of course, to our old starter base. And I've changed the path all the way up to here. So this used to all just be normal path blocks. I think there's some zombies underground, but yeah, now it's all changed. From the old school starter base here, you can get a really nice view of everything from here. It's just so colorful. I really, really like this build. Usually most of the builds that we make in the new city kind of are very dense. They don't take up very much room, kind of the same space that this single flower field takes up. We could have like 20 buildings in the new city. And while this is like slightly less functional, yes, oh geez. Oh wow. So as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, I think, you know, while this build is less functional, perhaps, than some of our builds in the new city, I think having a larger area, a less densely populated, kind of more rural area here to develop in this entire field would be really cool as well. You know, we could stretch all the way from, you know, spawn right here to, you know, potentially to the flower field. You know, we can have all of this be like wheat fields and carrot fields and the such. And, you know, this area right here actually used to be a forest as well. And so we could transform this into all kinds of different things later. I have so many ideas. This is such a cool thing. Alrighty everyone, we are back in the Nether hub because I want to hopefully chip away a little bit at our Nether rail project. So as you saw in the montage just then, I built a couple more portals and I've listed out all of the ones that I want to plug into our hub eventually. Now this isn't every portal that we have because some of them, like the Woodland Mansion, are like thousands of blocks away, and you know, like the cost versus the benefit here is just, it doesn't exactly line up. So here are some of the stops that we visit the most. There's nothing here in north because we finished our north line. The only thing here as of now is the gold farm. So we have east, our starter hub, the end portal. In the south, we have the mansion project and the slime ravine. In the west, we have, of course, our main storage. This is the old school house, which actually I think I want to keep plugged into the ceiling. And then, of course, our Christmas village. And then that's everything. So hopefully I want to finish up the west line today because this is on the same, this is technically the same line as the one that goes north to our gold farm. And once we have this set up, that's like most of the stops that we visit along the way. But before we actually get started on that, I want to show you the portal that I made in New City. We're back here in the New City right outside of our castle. When we open the doors in, bam, you can see that I've removed the old gold throne that used to be here and replaced it here with another hub throne. And, you know, I actually really like how this looks, even though it is simpler. You know, I think the candles on the spikes here provide this really imposing feeling, along with the 3 dragon heads, you know, the candles everywhere. It's a really, really imposing kind of throne. And it also allows us to walk straight into the Nether. Now, this is not plugged into the system yet, so I don't really want to go through it. But yeah, so now instead of having to go all the way to the old school house to enter the Nether, we can just go straight through here. Well, after we're done sorting our items, gathering things, we can just go straight to the project site wherever we want to be. Now there is one problem with this portal, and that is that zombie pigmen do come out, and so we're gonna have to be periodically dealing with them. But you know, it's not that many of them, and you know, at the end of the day, this is definitely going to be much more convenient having this right inside of our base. All right, guys, welcome back from the montage. We are finally done with the entire west to north Nether rail line. So this first stop right here is actually the stop to the new city. I thought I'd show it off first because, you know, it's kind of crazy to me. Yeah, here's the castle base. It's kind of crazy to me how far the flight is in the overworld to 0, when in the Nether hub, it's just right around the corner, like right there. That's just kind of crazy to me how small the distances actually are. And right there, that's the Guardian farm. We can just come through here and pop through the portal as well to see exactly where this leads us. Yep, this is still the storage of the Guardian farm. Then if we ride the tunnel all the way down there, we will get to the Christmas village where our super smelter is currently. Now, right now things are very simple. It's very utilitarian. There's not much decorations. I put in the ice roads here, but I don't have any of the railings, so it's not really possible to ice boat. But you know, I have crafters with minecarts, storage for minecarts, and of course I've actually written up all of the stop directories here in the lectern. So you know, we can go to, say, you know, let's say I want to go to the main Nether hub here. All I have to do is set this to blank and then push the button. This is like the 4th or 5th design I have for the rail logic here, but I think I finally have a design that works and that I quite like. But you know, we passed through some signal extenders. The reason this one is so close to the actual Nether hub is because we need the extra signal to actually make it all the way to the gold farm there, which, you know, theoretically we could actually ride the rail all the way there, but I don't think I want to ever do that because it's a very long journey. But all right, guys, this roughly 800 block extension of our Nether rail is pretty much all that I want to work on today. Maybe we'll fully finish this project next episode, or maybe a couple ones after that. I want to work on a new segment in each of our videos, and that is going to be the comment of the day. This one's from a while ago, but it's from Sino. Love the Nether build, by the way. Also, the OG Minecraft texture pack is very nostalgic. What made you want to keep using it? Excellent question, Sino. There's a lot of things that I like about the old school Minecraft textures. I could make an entire hour-long video about it, to be honest, but each and every one is not exactly unique like the new textures. And you know, a lot of people might assume first off that that's a bad thing, but I think it gives the game a lot of cohesiveness. For example, if you really pay attention closely to the cobblestone texture, you'll notice that there's echoes of it in blocks like stone bricks and smooth stone, and even andesite if you really look at kind of how the grains look. And you know, this might not be something that you pick up on right away, but when you notice it, you really realize that the game had like a much more recognizable art style back then, and nowadays that's just not really the case anymore. And so while of course I love the new blocks in the game, like, you know, I use a lot of deep slate, I use a lot of stripped wood blocks, you know, frankly I use them more than the old school ones, but when I do use older blocks, it gives this timeless feel to it that I really prefer. Now, about how my game looks in general, you may notice in the past couple of episodes it's changed quite a bit. I used a skybox texture pack that I have since removed, and I also used to use distant horizons as well. And you know, that's for a number of reasons. Most of them are technical, but you know, I just figured that, you know, embracing kind of the older art style of the game is, I think, something that I want to do on this channel, especially in the new city, which, you know, despite the name, there are some old school style builds here, just like the old school starter house that we worked on in today's episode. Yeah, just to recap, that was a lot, but just to recap, you know, it's just the old school textures really are more cohesive and timeless, I think, than the newer ones, and I think they really tend to fit together better as well. But I hope that answers your question, Sino. We are here in the library building where we can put this question right there. Maybe one day I'll build a larger library to hold all of your comments, but thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, then be sure to like and subscribe. I've been Flapjackpants. Goodbye.